So I am now calling the regular scheduled meeting of the Fairfield Planning Commission of December 8th, 2021 to order. Mr. Feinstein, may we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner McDonald, he is absent this evening. He let me know earlier this afternoon that he had a previously scheduled vacation from before he was appointed, so he's not here tonight. Commissioner Werblin?
Present.
Commissioner Smith? Here. Commissioner Evans?
Present.
Commissioner Childs?
Present.
Commissioner Cruzen is absent, and Commissioner Matthews?
Present. Commissioner Evans, may we call on you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. Everyone rise for the pledge. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll start with some brief information about making public comments. The public may comment on items that are not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, provided that no action may be taken on off-agenda items except as authorized by law. Off-agenda items from the public will be taken under consideration without discussion by the Commission and may be referred to staff. Comments will be accepted in person or via Zoom. To speak on an agenda item in person, please fill out a speaker card, one of these green cards, and give it to the front desk before the meeting or at the latest prior to the time for the public comments on that item. When joining via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your phone to request to speak. And I do also want to acknowledge and thank Commissioner Cruzen, who has just joined the meeting. One final note about public comment. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes per item. The next item is approval of the agenda. Mr. Feinstein, are there any changes to the agenda?
So there are no changes to the agenda, but I do want to identify a couple of things. First of all, with your staff report packets this week, it was noted that for item B, the Midway Meadows subdivision, that item, although we had noticed it for tonight, that item is going to be continued. The applicant wishes to have some further discussions with our Public Works Department about some of the proposed conditions for that project. So with your approval, we're going to continue that item from tonight's agenda. The other item I want to point out is that with Commissioner Childs attending via Zoom tonight, all of our votes will be by roll call. So when it comes time for voting, I'll call each of you individually for your vote.
So may I have a motion to accept the agenda?
Move to approve.
And a second?
I second.
All in favor? Well, let's do the roll call, excuse me.
Yes, Commissioner McDonald is absent. Commissioner Werblin?
Present. I mean, agree.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Cruzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Childs?
Yes.
And Commissioner Matthews?
Approved.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, the next item is approval of the minutes of October 27th, 2021. And I want to make particular note to thank Commissioner Evans for the excellent job she did in conducting and running that meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes for October 27th, 2021.
And a second?
Second.
Mr. Feinstein, will you conduct the roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner McDonald is absent. Commissioner Werblin?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Cruzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Childs?
Yes.
And Commissioner Matthews?
I'll abstain because I was not at the meeting last time. Okay, we're moving into public comment period. This is a time for the public to speak on items not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Items that are not part of the agenda, as mentioned previously, will be taken under consideration without discussion or action by the Commission, except as authorized by law. I now open the public hearing portion of the meeting. And again, if you're here to speak on one of the agenda items, this is not the time to speak. Do we have any cards on non-agenda items?
We do not.
And are there any Zoom calls?
There are no requests to speak at this time.
Okay. I am now closing the public hearing portion. The next segment is to talk about items that are on the agenda. For each agendized item, there will be a presentation by city staff. For items that involve applicant requests, I will ask the applicant to address the Planning Commission if they so desire. Then I will open the public hearing or call out the names of members who have filled out speaker cards to come forward to the podium to speak for up to 3 minutes. We will also take speakers via Zoom. I will close the public hearing after all comments have been provided and after all of our questions regarding the testimony during the public hearing have been answered. After the public hearing is closed, the Planning Commission will deliberate on the item and may have additional questions of staff. We cannot take additional testimony or questions from the public after the hearing is closed. The Commission will then vote on the item. So with that, Maylee, we'll turn the time over to you for your presentation. The first item is item A. Excuse me, I should have mentioned that. A request by Dermody Properties to construct 5 industrial buildings totaling approximately 717,500 square feet.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners, and those of you joining us. My name is Maylee Sheehan, and I will be presenting the Logistics Center at Fairfield item tonight. The project is located on the northeast corner of Beck Avenue and Cordelia Road on a vacant 59.7 acre site. The site is currently zoned IL, or Limited Industrial. Here is a contextual map, just giving you an idea of where in the city we are. Some major roadways are highlighted here. You have Chadbourne Road, Beck Avenue, Cordelia Road, and at the top of the screen is Highway 12. This area highlights our Solano Business Park, as well as our Bush Corporate Park. A couple of kind of key users or big name users that some of you may be familiar with is Sutter Urgent Health, Guitar Chocolate, Jelly Belly, Amcor Plastics, and Meyer. Notably, the project will abut Shelter Inc. on 3 sides. It's that little rectangular piece that abuts Beck Avenue. Project overview. The proposed project is an industrial campus consisting of 5 shell buildings, ranging in size from approximately 83,000 square feet to 260,000 square feet, totaling approximately 700,000 square feet. The applicant has also submitted for administrative review a tentative parcel map to create 5 legal parcels, 1 parcel for each building. As part of the project conditions, a reciprocal cross-access and parking easement is required to facilitate the site operating as a cohesive industrial park. The project is to be constructed in 2 phases, although I should mention, due to different timing constraints, the applicant may move forward with the project as 1 phase. I'll defer to the applicant to talk on that item. Environmental permits will be required to address the biological habitat features that are on the site. And lastly, I'd like to note that the 5 buildings will be used for limited industrial uses consistent with our zoning ordinance. So here we have the proposed tentative parcel map. You can see 1 parcel per building. Although the proposed building site is a bit of an irregular shape, all of these parcels meet our minimum lot dimensions per code. Here is a site plan of the site. The site is bordered by Ledgewood Creek on the east, highlighted in green there. Union Pacific Railroad is to the north, the blue dotted line. The project development will not impact either of these features. Access to the site is provided off of driveways on Beck and Cordelia, highlighted in the red circles there. If the project is to be constructed in the 2 phases, the first phase would include building and site improvements for buildings 1 and 2, outlined in purple. And the second phase will complete the project with the remaining infrastructure and buildings 3, 4, and 5. Site improvements include parking, landscaping, lighting, and stormwater treatment areas, as well as all the necessary utilities. There in blue are the stormwater treatment areas. So as I mentioned, an approximate total of 700,000 square feet of building is being proposed. The individual building breakdowns are on the screen. I won't try to read all those square footages for you. The smallest building I'll highlight is building number 4 at roughly 83,000 square feet, and the largest is building 5 at almost 170,000 square feet. The maximum building height allowed in the limited industrial zone is 50 feet. The maximum building height proposed with this project is going to be 45 feet. Based on warehouse and office square footage, the project requires a total of 359 automobile spaces and 7 bicycle spaces. Proposed is 806 automobile spaces, 130 truck spaces, and 42 bike spaces. This slide and the next few provide just a closer look at each of the buildings and the associated infrastructure. So here you have at the corner of Beck Avenue and Cordelia Road, buildings 1 and 2, the associated parking, and I'm sorry, you can't see my mouse. There's some stormwater quality features on these sites as well. They're the kind of triple outlined, irregular circle shapes, if you will. Here we have building 3, which is more in the center of the site, and buildings 4 and 5, which would be at the north side of the site. The Pacific Railroad would be at the top edge of this screen. So building layout, site configuration, landscaping, all have been proposed and or conditioned to ensure that the loading docks are screened from public view. A special condition has been added for building 3 to ensure that there is a wing wall constructed on the bottom edge of this screen, or this image on the screen, so that none of those loading docks are going to be visible from Cordelia Road. There are several landscape setbacks required for this project. 10 feet of landscaping is required on the street frontages. Within that landscaping, we do require 1 street tree per every 20 feet of frontage. Additionally, there is 5 feet of landscaping required along the interior property lines. That's only required within 75 feet of a street. So if you're starting at Beck Avenue, 75 feet into the property, you would need to have 5 foot of landscaping on the interior property lines. Additionally, we require 10 feet of landscaping between buildings and parking areas, and 10 feet along the building primary entrances. There's no landscaping requirements in the loading areas as long as they are screened and out of view. Now I have a few slides that will kind of get closer in with the landscape plan. Because the site is so big, one overall landscape plan really is hard to look at. So kind of honing in here, this first image is going to be Beck Avenue street frontage and the interface with Shelter Inc. So coming in a little closer, you can see all the street trees that they are proposing on Beck Avenue. There's going to be several rows of trees. And additionally, you can see the row of trees at the interior interface with Shelter Inc. This next one is going to be the corner of Beck Avenue and Cordelia Road. Again, several street trees and a couple layers along with ground cover as well. This is one of the entrances off of Cordelia Road. Kind of a bit repetitive here, but street trees in several layers. And then lastly, just so you guys can see some of the internal landscaping that is also proposed, this is between buildings 4 and 5. And you can also see throughout the parking areas, there is landscaping as well. Moving on to the building elevations. The proposed buildings are architecturally compatible with the surrounding industrial uses in the area. And architectural design elements have been included to create visual interest in the project through varied roof lines, movement in the facade to create multiple planes to kind of break up the large massing that industrial buildings have. And also an assorted color and materials palette. I only grabbed one building as an example. This is Building 1. If you can see on the bottom left corner and bottom right corner, there are the primary entrances there. We have added conditions to the project to require those entrances to be architecturally enhanced to make them a little bit more prominent, have them have a stronger focal point on the buildings. This slide just shows you the color palette. And then lastly, here is a rendering of what the buildings may look like once they are constructed. Again, we have required conditions that these primary entry points have enhanced architectural features just to really strengthen the visual. So recapping on the development review, highlighted here are some key conditions that staff is recommending. A wing wall or a screen wall is required for Building 3 to just make sure none of those loading docks are going to be visible off of Cordelia Road. As I just mentioned, some architectural enhancements for the primary entrances of each building have been proposed. Although the landscaping did seemingly show lots of street trees, we just want to make sure that we are meeting that one tree per every 20 feet of frontage. As previously mentioned, a reciprocal easement agreement is going to be required across all 5 of the parcels to make sure that there's cross-access and parking and that the site functions as a cohesive industrial park. There is a 36-inch water main that is owned and maintained by the city of Vallejo. Any improvements that are within this easement may require the city of Vallejo's approval and permitting. So we have added a condition that requires the applicant to show proof of that coordination with the city of Vallejo to our city's Public Works Department. There are several different street improvements that are going to be required along Beck and Cordelia. And in addition to that, we are also requiring that the applicant construct a bus turnout on Beck Avenue. So kind of wrapping up, the project was evaluated in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. We found that there were a handful of environmental resources that the project may impact. Those resources are biology, cultural resources, geology, transportation, and tribal cultural resources. We did extensive analysis of the project and had several studies provided by professionals to come up with several mitigations to ensure that those impacts can be reduced to less than significant levels through a mitigated negative declaration. I do also want to note that during the 30-day review period for that CEQA document, the Department of Fish and Wildlife provided comments to the city addressing the biological assessment, or section, I should say. There are a couple of items that they wanted to be analyzed further, which is why the project was continued from the October date. We did that analysis. We had some further biological assessments prepared. The document was then put on another 30-day review period in which the Department of Fish and Wildlife reviewed the revisions and let us know that they were content with the revisions that were made and that their concerns had been addressed. So we can safely say that the mitigation measures that are outlined in the CEQA document should reduce all of these impacts to less than significant levels. So with that, staff is recommending that you guys adopt Resolution 2021-20 granting development review approval of the project. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I do believe that an applicant representative is actually attending the meeting via Zoom.
Thank you very much, Maylee. Questions from the commissioners, please.
Thank you for that presentation. I know we said industrial use, but being that there's so many buildings and it's such a huge space, like what are the types of use that's going to be there?
I can't exactly speak to the tenants, but these are shell buildings. We do tend to see manufacturing and warehouses in buildings of this size and scale. Our applicant may be able to give a little more information on what they are imagining.
Yeah, and just to be clear, in the zoning district that this is located in are limited industrial. Pretty much any of the kinds of uses that you see today over in our Solano Business Park, over in that area. We have a wide range of manufacturers over in that area. So you have Jelly Belly, you have Guitar Chocolate, a number of other manufacturers. You could have warehouse and distribution, wide range of uses. Yeah, you're not going to get real heavy, intense kinds of industrial uses, but pretty much typically take a drive around Solano Business Park and any of those kinds of uses are what you could see in these buildings.
Other questions? Yes, please.
Sure. Yeah, thank you for their presentation. Do we have any kind of economic impact or sort of job numbers? I know, this development could create a significant amount of jobs. So just curious on if you had any detail on that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't as staff. Again, I'm sure our applicant may have some ideas. Typically at this stage of development or construction, they may have tenants in mind, but they aren't ready to disclose who those tenants are. So as staff, I don't have those figures, but as you mentioned, buildings of this scale and size could have a lot of job creating users.
Do you want me to bring the applicant on from Zoom to answer that question?
I think so, please.
Thank you.
Okay, 1 second.
Just while we're doing that, Maylee, would you bring up the overview, please, the aerial? And a few months back, we approved another development. Can you just point out that location for everyone's benefit? The broader one, yes.
I think the
And
location.
George is now on Zoom and able to speak.
It's not,
Before we answer that question, the city attorney has a comment.
And Chair, just before we allow the applicant to speak, the public hearing should be open, so you can continue asking your questions of staff.
okay.
But then,
So let's do that. Thank you for pointing that out. Other questions?
To answer your question, I think you were asking the location of the building that was most recently approved by the Planning Commission. And I'm stepping in because I don't think Maylee was involved in that project. Over on the leftish side of the screen, you'll see a big white rectangular building along Chadbourne Road, and then to the south of it is an open field and then another rectangular building. That's the location along, exactly right
Yeah.
there. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's about a 200,000 square foot building.
Yeah, I had just a quick question.
Please, go ahead, Commissioner Child.
Yeah, my question had to do with the coordination with the city of Vallejo for the waterline easement. Will that be like a slam dunk? Do we see any challenges with that coordination, or will that go through pretty easily?
I might want to pass that off to our Public Works Department so I don't misspeak.
Excuse me. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Alvin Lay, and I work for the City of Fairfield's Public Works Department. As Maylee kind of alluded to, City of Vallejo staff has been actively engaged in discussions regarding this project, and they have been brought on to the team, if you will, to kind of bring up their points and perspectives for what the developer would need to achieve in order to construct their proposed development within that 15-foot wide Vallejo easement. Currently, there are a couple of requirements and considerations that the applicant would need to satisfy, such as making sure that the development is adequately, has enough cover between their Vallejo water line and, their parking lot, if you will. But overall, there are no major conditions or requirements, in my opinion, that I think would prevent this project from moving forward. Just to kind of provide a little bit of perspective, the proposed development has proposed parking lot, more or less, within the widths of that easement, which are not considered permanent structures, and the City of Vallejo would still have fairly reasonable access to their water line if any repairs or maintenance are needed. The applicant and the City of Fairfield staff and City of Vallejo are still working through a couple of those requirements, but again, I don't think there's any major roadblocks, if you will.
Thank you.
Would you use the laser pointer to show the approximate location of the easement?
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks for pulling up this map here, Maylee. You can kind of see the boundaries of the easement here on this map right here. It's kind of going through the site, following where the laser cursor kind of is. The primary limits of development are around this building 5 and this building 1 here. And as you can see and may notice, this easement is almost wholly within the proposed parking lot. So there's no building structures proposed over it or any again, permanent structures proposed.
Thank you. Commissioner Child, any other questions?
No, that was perfect.
Commissioner Werpler.
Thank you. Can you talk about any issues that may impact the Shelter Inc. during this construction or post-construction?
Sure. During construction, construction typically has, noise and dust impacts. In the environmental document, there are some mitigations outlined of how to reduce those impacts. Post-construction, I can't think of any the way that the site is set up, there really shouldn't be any major impacts in terms of accessing the site or even really noise, being that Shelter Inc. is technically considered a commercial use next to an industrial use. You would see that frequently throughout the city, and they tend to be compatible land uses.
Thank you. And I do have a second question for the city. Is there any solar panel requirements for buildings now during construction? And you can also answer if there's any electric vehicle parking that's going to be there as well.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know, but I can come back at a future meeting and let you know what the current standards are for solar and for electric vehicle. I just don't know. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
Please. Commissioner Cruzen.
Sorry, I just needed some clarification. If the applicant is approved, we are recommending that they improve both Beck and Cordelia Road, correct?
Yes, that is correct. There are pretty extensive conditions within the Public Works section of the entitlement package for, like I've mentioned, extensive improvements to both Beck and Cordelia.
That's the entire road, correct? Not just where they're...
I believe it's along the frontage. I'll defer again to Alvin to make sure I don't misspeak.
Good evening again, Planning Commissioners. So just to provide a little bit of context, as you can notice here, a majority of the proposed development fronts on Beck Avenue, just south of the existing railroad tracks here, except for that portion of frontage that is along Shelter Solano. So as part of the project entitlements and as a condition of development, the applicant is required to widen Beck Road towards the east from the center line of the road. So what that means is the applicant is required to provide some additional asphalt to widen the existing lane widths. So currently there is a single travel lane in each north and south direction, as well as a dual left turn lane. So with the additional widening, they'll also be adding a little bit more lane width. But in addition, they'd also be adding sidewalk as well as street lights, which is your typical frontage improvements. Just to speak a little bit about the Cordelia Road frontage here, the applicant is required to widen Cordelia Road along their frontage from the center line towards the north, which is towards their development here. Currently, Cordelia Road is unimproved on both the north and south side of Cordelia Road. So with this development as part of their project entitlements, they'd be required to install, again, sidewalk as well as street lights along their Cordelia Road frontage.
Sorry, could you go back to the aerial, please?
Keep going.
Okay.
So on the opposite side of Cordelia, that's yet to be developed, and at that point in time, the appropriate matching infrastructure would be installed, correct?
So currently, the south side of Cordelia Road is within the Solano County limits and outside of the city of Fairfield limits. Moving forward, if there was a desire to annex this area into the city of Fairfield limits and there was subsequent development that occurred on that side of Cordelia Road, I would anticipate that similar frontage improvements along Cordelia Road would be required at that time.
Is that land developable, or is it wetlands or any other constraints that you're aware of?
So, there are extensive wetlands over on the south and east side of Cordelia Road, depending on how you want to look at the direction here, but that side of Cordelia Road, lots and lots of wetlands. I know it's not in our city limits, nor is it in our sphere of influence, essentially the area that we have the ability to control future annexations for. I believe it's actually in Suisun City's sphere of influence. So it would be their responsibility to look at all those wetland issues. And I know they've looked at various development proposals on the other side of Cordelia Road over there, none of which have come to fruition to this date. Wetlands are a part of the big issue over in that area.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
Actually, I do have a question. I'm still a little bit green as far as what all the CEQA report entails, but I was wondering if anyone had studied the impact of traffic on Highway 12, because we are talking about 800 and something cars, 130 additional truck parkings, and most of the time they're going to be coming in, I would assume, right there off of Highway 12 and making that right onto Beck or Chadbourne. So I'm just wondering about if the traffic,
Sure.
the traffic impact.
So just to provide a little bit of context, a trip assessment as well as a traffic study was subsequently required for this proposed development. I don't have too many of the specifics on that study, but I would pass it over to our city traffic engineer to kind of chime in on that.
I can also just add very briefly that CEQA as an environmental statute, was amended by the state a few years ago to remove the level of service analysis, which basically means the congestion-based analysis. So while the city still does a traffic assessment, and Garland can speak to that, the actual environmental impacts for purposes of CEQA are now looked at in terms of vehicle miles traveled. So it's a different measure of transportation impacts that relates to the vehicle trips and the environmental impacts of those versus traffic. But I'll turn
That
the
was
traffic
clear.
part
Thank
over
you.
to
That was
Garland.
really good.
Good evening, County Commissioners. My name is Garland Wong. I'm the city's traffic engineer. And the project did look at elements at the intersections that intersect with Beck Avenue. And based on that analysis, there was no additional impact for those intersections, as well as the roadway capacity itself. And so we believe that it's going to be fine. We see issues down further along Highway 12. And so I think we were pretty comfortable with the outcome of that study.
Thank you.
That was a third-party traffic study?
Correct.
Other questions? I do have a couple more follow-up items. Let's go back to the Shelter Inc. If I understand correctly, they're under construction with a new kitchen. Can you speak to that and maybe give some context of how that construction will fit in with these adjacencies?
I don't know, Amelia, do you have an aerial that zooms in a little bit more?
Sort of.
That's probably, yeah. So right about in that location, maybe just a little more to the left, Shelter Inc. is going to be constructing, and they've broken ground on a kitchen and dining facility. So that's a little more interior to the site. There's existing buildings around the perimeter in the back there. So the the kitchen and dining facility is a little more internal into that site. I'm not sure exactly what specific questions you have. As Maley noted, they're going to have extensive tree planting along the perimeter there. Most of the buildings are actually set back a ways from that Shelter Inc. site as it is. So, and the activities in these kinds of buildings, they take place inside. On the outside, you got parking, and you'll have trucks moving, but the actual industrial activities that you see will take place inside those buildings.
And if I'm not mistaken, they're also going to have some gardening area?
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough.
I'm just leading this up to a conversation that our applicant may want to comment on in just a minute about maybe providing some additional support for Shelter Inc. So we'll come back to that in a second. I do have a request, and I'm not sure this is the right forum to discuss it, but there's an extensive amount of work that will be done at 80 and 680 in the coming years, and I think it would be beneficial for the commission to have a presentation at some point about what all those are and how they may or may not affect various traffic studies and so forth. So that's just a request for future activity.
Commissioner,
And when you report back about the electric car charging and solar panels, and maybe you can address it now, but what do we know about lighting for the area and what our requirements are, again, especially because that's an area where, things happen at various times of the night?
Sure. Part of the proposed conditions does require a photometric plan or a lighting plan, essentially, to be submitted at the time of building permit review. The city has some standard foot candle or the brightness of light requirements for internal and external property lines.
Yeah. So
Has the city converted that all of that has to be LED lighting at this point?
Not that I am aware of. I'll defer to Dave.
Yeah, I'm not aware if there's a mandate in the city's building code, but I'll ask.
Okay.
Under Title 24, the state,
They have
the
to,
building
yeah.
code, they have to do an energy analysis, and so all of that comes into play. But I'll report back on that for you.
And, I'm sorry, Dave, go ahead. So just to kind of also speak on the city requirements for streetlights that are constructed within the public right-of-way, we recently updated our city standards and have concurrently been implementing the requirement that all new streetlights be LED per current city standards and specifications, but also we encourage the on-site, proposed street lighting on-site to also meet that requirement as well. But of course, certain codes like building codes and whatnot would govern over on the private side.
So with respect to the widening of the street, does that include any additional street lighting as opposed to project lighting?
That's correct. So as part of the widening improvements for both along Beck and the north side of Cordelia Road, the applicant's required to provide a photometric study that shows how much lighting is anticipated for along the project frontage. And on top of that, they would be required to construct streetlights per the current LED standards and specifications that the city requires.
And to add some, just a little additional information on the site lighting, under our standard conditions of approval for the project, it's this project, but any project that comes before you, excuse me, as a part of the photometric study, one of the things we want to make sure is that there's enough lighting that at nighttime, not only can you see as you get around, but that it's safe. And so we have a standard that's been in place for a long time, that there would be what's called 1 foot candle of light at a minimum at all parts of the site at nighttime when the lights are on, but also that the lights be shielded so that when you get to the edge of the property, that light drops off, that lighting drops off really fast as you go on to the next property. So we want to make sure that it's both lighted on that property, but that light isn't bleeding over and causing issues. So the requirement for, as Maley mentioned, for the photometric study, that when they come in for their building permits, staff reviews that to make sure that they meet that condition.
Very good. Thank you.
Person Matthews,
Commissioners, additional questions?
Just a comment to go along with what you said about Shelter Solano and that potential garden, and we've heard in other areas presentations from Shelter. So just to put it out there, it would be nice with the developers and future tenants to have some type of relationship, because I believe Shelter does have a job program for their unhoused individuals. So just want to put that out there for the applicant as well as future tenants.
Thank you, Commissioner Wordblin. With that, we're ready to open public hearing, correct? So we now officially open the public hearing, and let's pull in the applicant for any additional questions by the commissioners, and if you'd like to make any comments relative to discussions that have already taken place.
Hello, this is George Condon with Dermody Properties.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm ready to answer any questions you have, or...
Well, there have been a number of discussions that have been raised, so why don't we open the floor for you to address some of the discussions that have taken place, and commissioners, if you have direct questions, please let us know.
I'm afraid I'm not recalling specific questions at this point. I think Maley and the rest of the staff did an excellent job of summarizing the project. I think there was one question regarding the number of jobs. And if you look at the traffic report and you look at the parking stalls that we've proposed versus the number that's required by code, we're envisioning somewhere around 800 jobs at this industrial park at full build out.
Can you speak as to your vision of likely tenants based on what you know of the current marketplace, albeit, we're probably out 20 months or whatever before it actually gets constructed, but give us some insight as to what your thinking is there.
Yeah, I think Dave did a good job of summarizing that. We actually have 3 companies right now that are interested in the 2 larger buildings, Building 2 and Building 3 on the site plan. The one company is primarily warehouse distribution. Another company is one of your existing corporate citizens and more of a manufacturer. And the other company is relocating potentially from the North Bay and more of a manufacturer. So I think it's manufacturing, warehouse distribution. Fairfield, as we all know, is a very strong candidate for companies in the food industry, and so I would expect to see at least one company from that industry out here at this park.
And there was some discussion about timing of building these buildings. What is your current thinking relative to how you might phase it?
Sure. Yeah. So buildings 1 and 2 will break ground as soon as possible. If we have a dry winter, there's a chance we'll start this winter. But with the delays that we've incurred on the recent delays on the entitlement process, most likely all the buildings will begin in May of next year. Now, when I say that, there is some natural staggering that goes on, but for all intents and purposes, we will go ahead and begin construction next year on all 5 buildings. And right now, construction is taking longer than usual because of the availability of steel. So those buildings would be under construction all of next year and into at least the first quarter of the following year.
And while I don't foresee this being a condition of development, but following up on Commissioner Werblin's comments, we would really encourage you and your organization to consider getting involved with the Shelter Inc. Project and see if there aren't some ways in which your team can help both support that and potentially have a way to help the participants of Shelter Inc. find some gainful employment. Anything else you want to bring up on that?
No, you said it well. Thank you, Chairperson.
If I could just comment, Dermody Properties has a philanthropic division, and we will reach out to them. We need to send them an application and get them on the list. And but we would love to learn more about their operation and give that some serious thought.
Commissioners, any other questions? If not, we'll roll on into the public comments. From the applicant, is there anything else that you want to express before we move forward with? We have approximately 7 or 8 cards here for speaking.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'd just like to thank and applaud staff. We started this project in 2018, in May of 2018. So for the last 3.5 years, we've spent a lot of time with staff and our various consultants shaping this project. I think it's going to be a great project, and I think it's going to attract great employers and really competitive jobs to Fairfield.
This is your first project in Fairfield, correct?
For Dermody Properties, not for me. I developed the project across Beck Avenue for Panatone Development Company.
Oh, okay. Very good. Our first speaker is Ken Miller. And again, you'll have 3 minutes. And Dave, I may need some guidance on this device. Or are we doing?
I'll be controlling the timer from back here.
Yeah.
It's being controlled by our.
Okay.
by
Very
our
good. Thank you.
Backroom staff.
Go ahead, Ken.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the commission. Thank you for this opportunity to address you. My name is Ken Miller, business agent organizer for Iron Workers Local 378. Oh, this thing's not very stable. Iron Workers are all for this project. We urge you to support this project as well. It is a perfect project for the placement in the area. They're going to they're going to construct this project using prevailing wage jobs. That's jobs people can live off. They're going to go through the union, so that means local people are going to get a chance to work on this project. I represent several hundred members of the ironworkers that live in Solano County that would love a chance to work on this project instead of having to drive down to the South Bay. A lot less carbon emissions in the air. I know all of them won't get to work there, but a few of them will if you support it. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ken. Our next speaker will be Donald Barr, followed by Matt Vallis.
Good evening. Pardon. Good evening, Planning Commissioner. My name is Donald Barr, and I am a Fairfield resident and also an apprentice with the Sheet Metal Workers Local Union 104. I think it's important for me to provide a construction worker's perspective on this as this project moves through the city. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of opportunities in the city of Fairfield to make a good minimum wage living without a 4-year degree. Being an apprentice with the Sheet Metal Workers Union has provided me that opportunity and could give the same opportunity to a lot more of my colleagues as well as other residents within Solano County. The industrial campus will be constructed utilizing skilled and trained workers, many of whom will be within Fairfield and the surrounding cities. Seeing as I have to commute sometimes incredibly far distances, I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to work on this project. This is the right kind of project for Fairfield that will have a major positive economic impact, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. We appreciate you coming in and sharing your views. Next, we'll have Matt Vallis, followed by Frank Kappenhurst.
Hi, I'm Matt Vallis. I'm here on behalf of all the sheet metal workers from Local 104 that live in and around Solano County. I happen to live in Fairfield too, so I appreciate this project and what Dermody's doing. They understand what it means to put middle-class jobs in our county, and like Donald said, it doesn't happen very often out here, and we really appreciate it, and they come to the table and they're willing to utilize the union workforce that we provide, and we're all for this project. We'd love to see it built, and the jobs that it'll create after it's built too, they mean something here, and it'll put people to work, and it'll do a lot of good for our community. We like to see local economy growth, and this is how we get it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in and again sharing your views. Next, Frank Kappenhurst, and I'm sorry, I'm not able to read that. Let's go Desiree Crawford, and then whoever's the final speaker, you'll know, after Frank here.
Okay. Looks like it's Glenn Leveny, I believe.
Okay.
Thank you all for the opportunity to speak. My name is Frank Kappenhurst with the Local 378 Ironworkers. I am a local resident of Sassoon, just 10 minutes down the road, a homeowner for a year and a half or so. I can't say enough about, as you all know, bringing jobs locally. It's good for the economy, as everybody said. Yeah, you're going to have a little bit more traffic and flow of workers coming from locally and surrounding cities, but at the same time, it's also bringing business, local business. But it's a great opportunity for us all, and to speak on the standard itself of ironworkers that we bring to the table. We take a vow of excellence, a standard that we all take pride in our building. And through the apprenticeship, we learn how to construct in a very wise manner, in a manner that's safe. You see these buildings, you spend a lot of money on them, you want them to stand for a long time. Well, the way that we build speaks for that. The way that we build will testify for that. You know, when you're out there on the job, you got guys that don't know what they're doing. They're not trained on that level. You see it. You have a lot of mess, things are not safe. We don't bring that to the table. We bring safe practices. We get the job done, quality work, and that's what we're here to do. So we hope that we get the opportunity to be on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Desiree? And then Glenn.
Hi, my name is Desiree Crawford. I'm an apprentice out of Local 378. Not only am I an apprentice, I'm also a single mother of 4. Being an apprentice here in Solano County and everything, you know, California is a little expensive, but it's given me a chance to provide for my kids, to put food on the table for them and still be there. So to have a project in Solano County is like a dream come true, where I'll be able to, you know, come home and like have a little bit more one-on-one time with my kids. You know, the project will create, not just for me, but it's going to create a lot of good jobs for other members in the construction industry. And yeah, you know, the union and the apprenticeship is really important because it's changed my life. And also, again, like, that's my dream job. I just live in Vallejo. That's right down the street. Anyway, yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you for sharing. And Glenn will be our concluding speaker.
Thank you very much. Good evening, members of this board. My name is Glenn Lovall. I am political coordinator for the Iron Workers Union Local 378, representing members across Fairfield as well as Solano County. I'm wanting to stand here in solidarity for the union and the other trades that you see here in strong support of this project. I myself was born and raised in Fairfield. Most of my family still lives here. I actually grew up within 2 blocks of this building. So heavily invested, of course, in the future of this community. What we see here is development in a truly equitable form. Not only is it compatible with the region of the city that this project would be built within, but we are seeing, of course, much needed stimulus to the local economy as we recover from COVID-19 while investing in workers, and that is investment in the broader community as well. Our world-class tuition-free, debt-free apprenticeship programs enable workers from all walks of life to get a proper education and established in a strong, enduring career in construction that truly is a middle-class quality of life, while enabling local hire and creating those pathways for local residents to be getting these high-quality jobs. We know that this is a very commuter-oriented, commuter-dependent community, and so creating local job opportunities, as we know, is also the more environmentally sustainable approach to take here by allowing people to commute less while spending more time with their families and spending that money locally, especially with the enhanced and strong wages and benefits enabled by the labor standards of this project. This is equitable development in a time that we very badly need it as we continue to go through the recovery from COVID here. And if I may take the liberty, if I can ask all of the union construction workers here in solidarity to please stand and show our support. With that, we thank you for your consideration and greatly look forward to making a wonderful investment in our community and in our workers. Thank you.
Again, thank you to all of our fellow neighbors, and we appreciate your interest and comments on this project. Do we have any comments on Zoom?
Yes, we do. The first speaker will be Manny Chen. Manny, go ahead and unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, Chair and members of the board. As you mentioned, my name is Manny Chen. So I'd like to introduce myself as a proud member of the LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. I'm also a veteran of the U.S. Army, and on behalf of thousands of members like myself that call the city home, I'm here to ask you to strongly consider voting in favor of this project. Because like when you guys were all campaigning and asking for our votes, we are returning and asking for your votes in this favor of this project because it's in our best interest. As many of you know, your constituents have to commute in order to make a living wage. But by passing projects like this, you're creating jobs that not only are creating a living wage, but also providing benefits, a pension opportunity for veterans like myself to find a career outside of the military, and lastly, generating revenue for the city by allowing us to shop locally and support local small businesses. We are here to make it clear that we support this project and many more like this, and we ask you to do the same. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Manny. Next up, we have Leticia DeBrito. Leticia, please unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Commission. My name is Leticia DeBrito. I'm with Where Malcolm Architects. We prepare the plans on behalf of Dermody Properties. And I just wanted to briefly speak to some of the comments that have been raised in regards to solar panels, EV chargers, and LED light fixtures. I know Mr. Feinstein will, I'm sure in subsequent meetings, provide further information as to the building requirements, but I did want to note that our project is proposing to have solar-ready areas on the roof that is accounted for in the structural loading and design of the roof, which is in line with the requirements of the California Building Code. And we have also designed the site with thought to accounting for EV charger-ready infrastructure, which is also in line with the requirements of the California Building Code. And finally, I can't speak to the Title 24 LED requirements specifically. My electrical engineer would be more well-versed in that, but I would like to note that our project's site lighting will be LED light fixtures as well, as we typically provide those on these types of projects. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Leticia. Next up, we have Diego. Diego, go ahead and unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Like I said, my name is Diego Hernandez. I am a member of LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. I'd like to echo what my other brothers and sisters of the building trades unions have echoed. When I joined the union, I enrolled into an apprenticeship program that helped jumpstart my career. It opened up opportunities that I think were never possible. This development will provide opportunities to members of this community. Opportunities that gave me the opportunity to purchase a home, provide health and welfare to my family, and one day retire with dignity. Developments like this will bring those opportunities to this community. So I encourage you to approve this development, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Diego. Before I bring in the next person, I'd like to remind people watching on Zoom to use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to speak on this item. Next up, we have Francisco. Francisco, go ahead and unmute. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yes. Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good evening, commissioners and everybody.
Sorry about that.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead and start again.
Let's try again. Good evening, planning commissioners and everybody in attendance this evening. My name is Francisco Nunez. I work for the Labor Pacific Southwest Organizing Department, and I'm speaking at the request of Labor's Local 324. You know, Labor's 324 represents over 1,600 hardworking men and women in Solano County, over 500 of whom live in Fairfield. I previously worked as a general foreman for an engineering company for 16, 17 years. More than often traveled long distances to get to and from jobs throughout Northern California. You know, this traveling took its toll on my health and my family. A project like this, with good paying wages and benefits in Solano County, would mean a lot to our members who live in the county, because it would allow them to live here, work here, and be closer to their families, and not spending their time commuting incredible distance at many of the times. You know, more importantly, and I think a lot of the speakers here echoed, and I truly feel, is it would provide our young adults, some of which are single mothers, like Desiree that spoke earlier, the opportunity to work on this project through different apprenticeship programs, starting a lifetime career. For some, it's the only chance at a project that they can actually commute to and from. As young adults, you know, transportation may be difficult or different situations, but, you know, projects like this provide a second chance. That's also considering the jobs that will be available for permanent for the future of the city and those in surrounding areas. Furthermore, I do want to highlight the tremendous and diligent work Dermody has done with respect to the environmental considerations. They truly went above and beyond to ensure this project met all environmental benchmarks. They're going to build a beautiful project, a lot of trees. It's you know, it's going to be great for everybody involved. I do appreciate your time, and I absolutely urge you to support the project and move this forward. I hope everybody has a good evening, and thank you for the time.
Okay. Thank you, Francisco. That is our last speaker on Zoom.
Okay. Would staff like to respond to any of the public comments or prior discussions?
Yeah, I don't think anything new came up during those comments. General support for the project. So, yeah, nothing else.
Can we
Please.
circle back and ask a few questions to the developer?
Yes.
Is that still available? Okay.
Can we? Yeah.
My question for them is, I know that we have a lot of union workers here. It's a two-part question. One, aside from the unions that are speaking today, are there any other contractors that you guys are using locally? And I know we can't determine the start date, but ideally, how long will it take this project to be completed?
Yeah, can you hear me? This is George Condon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let me take the second part first. So construction groundbreaking will begin in May of next year, and I would assume we'll be constructing these buildings for 14 to 16 months. So that's the timing. As far as local contractors, these are very large jobs. I think what you've heard tonight, and we really appreciate our construction friends, is that you're going to have local residents who are going to be working on these jobs. I don't know of any large construction firms in Fairfield that work on tilt-up concrete structures like this. If there are, maybe I could ask Mei Lee to introduce us to them, and we can have a discussion with them at some point in the near future.
I would assume that you will probably have subcontractors that are locally based involved, but the general contractor, as would be typical, would probably not be a Fairfield contractor. Just approximately, what are we talking about per square foot construction costs? Are you, I'm guessing in the $70 range, or it's been a while since I've been involved in warehouse construction? Just to get, if we're talking about 700,000 square feet, I'm guessing you're going to be in the $40 to $60 million range. Is that somewhat
Yeah,
correct?
that's right. You're actually, your information's pretty good. It's some number between $70 and $78 a square foot.
So just to give some context, it's a major project for this area. Other questions from the commission? Yes.
I know you mentioned that you have 3 tenants. I was just curious, were they planning to relocate to Fairfield, or were they going to make additional? Because I'm just thinking about the jobs. You may not be able to answer this question, but if they're planning to relocate their businesses from the North Bay to here, would that mean that those existing employees would come over here? So technically, we don't necessarily have 800 jobs available for the city of Fairfield. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, your question makes sense. I think the future occupants in these buildings will be a combination of your Fairfield's larger corporate citizens expanding their businesses, maybe some medium-sized ones too. We do have a couple small buildings here. And when they expand, they'll be hiring new employees. There will be a couple companies that will relocate. The North Bay one is a prime example. Employees who live in Petaluma or Rohnert Park or Santa Rosa are not going to commute to Fairfield. They'll find other opportunities in the North Bay, and that will open up job opportunities for folks in Solano County.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Please.
I thought it was an excellent presentation.
Just had a few comments. I'd say first, the project is, I think, the right location. It's, it fits the zoning, so I think that it seems fitting and not too controversial there. I'd like to thank everybody that came out to speak. I think, getting good paying blue collar jobs like warehouse, industrial, I think that is really important. I do think we need more of that here. And, and like some of the speakers mentioned, those commutes that people, I know have a few friends that do that similar work, and some of them are driving, these commutes are just brutal. And if we can get some people get some more local jobs, it may not be 800, but if we could get several hundred jobs here, I think that would help offset some of the impacts to the traffic potentially. And so I think that sounds like a good deal for City of Fairfield, and not just the local jobs, but I think the economic development gain from that, bringing the warehouse jobs may not be all the most high paying, but it does help us bring more money to Fairfield to help run operations that we need in Fairfield. So with that being said, I think the project is good, and I'm in favor of it.
I would like to echo those comments. Obviously, the number of jobs will be highly dependent on the nature of the tenants, whether it's distribution will be lower, manufacturing will be higher, et cetera. But I think it's right place, right time, and another excellent developer to join in Fairfield. So with that, would someone like to make a motion relative to this resolution?
Actually, before we make a motion, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I do agree with the area and the type of jobs. I just wish that the project was slightly smaller. That being said, I have the unpopular opinion that it is not only our job to look at what's going on right now, but also to look towards the future as well. So the reason why I said I would love to have seen this project be a little bit smaller, like maybe minus buildings 4 and 5, is because I would like to have tenants that we are sure, whatever surety means. There's nothing certain nowadays, but tenants that we are sure can be long-term tenants. When you look at some of the other industrial and manufacturing buildings that are over there, those are tenants and businesses that have stood the test of time. They've been around for many, many, many years, and I guess my concern with a project so large and it's not all yet filled is that, you know, this might be great for right now, but 25 years down the line, are we going to be looking at a bunch of vacant buildings because we didn't look towards the future as what the longevity of the tenants? And I am very much so against creating a bigger community of commuters, because I think that that happens a lot in the Bay Area, where we just take whatever, you know, we just don't think in the future, and then we have a lot of commuting, we have a lot of traffic, and then our housing can't keep up. So although I am in favor of the project, I will say that I'm thinking in the future with all new developments. What is it going to look like in the future? Because, you know, 25 years ago, no one could foresee that, you know, malls would be in jeopardy of closing, or that, you know, retail spaces would not be, or office spaces wouldn't be as utilized because people were going to be working from home. So hopefully, the tenants that we will have in there are going to be long-term tenants that can withstand the test of time and everything that they're going to be challenged with going through. And I just want to say these have been great presentations and great points, and I appreciate everyone that spoke tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Evans. I think you bring up very valid points. Again, that it's hard to know what's going to happen 10 years, let alone 20 or 25, but those are the types of issues we should be thinking about. I neglected to close the public hearing portion, so I am now doing that, closing the public hearing portion. And if there are no additional comments or deliberation, may I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution PC 2021-20.
And a second?
Second.
Mr.
And I'm sorry, Chair, if I could suggest one quick correction in Section 2 of the resolution. It references a public hearing date of October 13th, and I would just suggest including in the motion and update that to today's date.
Commissioner Smith, would you like to so amend your motion?
So amend the motion to change the date instead of, you said October 13th?
Yes, it's just to update the date to today's date in Section 2 of the resolution.
So moved?
Yeah, that works. And Mr. Feinstein, roll call? What was?
Yeah, do we need to get a second to the amended motion?
A second?
Okay.
Second.
I thought Commissioner Childs seconded.
But the amendment, the motion was amended, so.
Thank you.
A second to the amendment.
Okay. All right, I'll take the roll call. Commissioner McDonald is absent. Commissioner Werblin?
Agree.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Evans?
Yes.
Commissioner Cruzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Child?
Yes.
And Commissioner Matthews?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion passes. We'd like to, thank you. We'd like to thank our fellow citizens for coming out and supporting this project. And I do also want to echo the applicant's comments about Ms. Sheehan's and Mr. Feinstein's efforts. We hear that regularly from our applicants, the professional way in which they're treated. So we want to express that appreciation to your staff. Our next item, item B, Midway Meadows, has been continued to the January 12th meeting 2022 at this point. So with that, we'll turn the time over to you, Mr. Feinstein, for Director's report.
Sure. I have, I think, 4 items to report on. The first, you'll recall at your last meeting, there was a request by the Spanos Corporation for the Planning Commission to initiate special zoning for a project that they're proposing over along Business Center Drive. At that meeting, the commission unanimously declined to initiate that zoning. I do want to give you an update on that. I'm going to take my mask off so that you can hear me a little bit better here. The Spanos Corporation, following the Planning Commission meeting, requested that the City Council initiate that zoning, and they have the right to do that. City Council heard their request and did decide to initiate the zoning for that. So what that means is we will now start studying the project, studying both the project from the design of it as well as the environmental impacts of the project. We will be preparing an environmental impact report for that. And we expect it'll take probably 6 months before that project is back before you for a request for an action to approve that project. We will come back before you, though, for the EIR to determine if there's any particular issues either the commission or members of the public want to raise to be included in the EIR as a part of the analysis. So somewhere after the first of the year, we'll be back with you to identify issues of concern, and we heard a collection of issues raised at that initiation discussion during the public hearing, and both from the commission. So you'll have a chance formally to say, these are the issues that we would like to see studied in the EIR that would then come back to the commission at the time you're asked to take action on the project. Second item I want to report on, last night at the City Council meeting, the City Council discussed Planning Commission attendance. Somewhere in the last year, the City Council established an attendance standard for the Planning Commission. They decided to take another look at that, and they gave direction to our city attorney and staff to come back with some changes to the Planning Commission standards. The request that the council put out was that the standard be that if a commissioner misses 2 meetings unexcused during the year, that they could then be considered for removal. So right now it's 3 in a row or 5 during the calendar year. So the City Council decided now we want to be a little more stringent with 2 unexcused absences. And they also asked for a better definition of what does unexcused mean. Looking potentially for something a little more objective that, yeah, this is either excused or it's not excused, not a more discretionary kind of request for excuse. So as that's developed a little bit further, I'll report back to you on how that works. So just to keep you in the loop on that. And there was also discussion about doing a study of the Planning Commission's compensation. I think you're compensated $35 a meeting. So there was recognition that hasn't been changed in a long time. So the City Council will be talking about potential changes for your compensation. The next item I want to report on, I think you've heard over the last several meetings, for a range of reasons, we've lost a number of staff in the planning division as a part of the great resignation that we hear about across all aspects of our economy. The planning division has lost a number of staff. We've lost 3 of our staff. One person retired, one person got a promotion with another city, and one of our other staff members moved out of state with her husband. So unfortunately, we lost a lot of good staff, a lot of good knowledge. We are, however, in the process process of recruiting to replace those staff and actually expand our staff. So we have 4 positions that we are recruiting for, a couple of lower level positions, as well as a senior planner and a principal planner. As I think you see, we get a lot of very complicated, very detailed kinds of projects that we really want somebody, another staff person. Maylee does a great job. We want even more capacity on our staff to handle some very complex projects. So we've got 4 positions that are out. We've put offers, we've conducted interviews for the 2 lower level staff positions. We put offers out for 2 good candidates. So I expect they'll be on board somewhere after the first of the year. And then we've just closed our recruitment for the senior planner position and the principal planner position, and we're working to schedule interviews. We were very pleased at the pool of applicants that we got for those 2 positions. So somewhere probably in February, March, at the latest, we'll have those positions on board. So I am looking forward to being back to full staffing. We have we made some interim arrangements with some temporary staffing services. And so you'll be hearing from a few of those over the next couple of months as they work through. We have a large backlog of projects. A number of them will be coming your way after the first of the year. And with that note, we have at least 2 items scheduled for the meeting of January 12th. We could have more on the 12th, but at least 2 are tracking for the 12th. I don't have anything scheduled at the moment for the meeting of December 22nd. We're going to adjourn tonight to that meeting, but at the moment it looks like that one's going to be canceled. I'm not seeing anything moving forward towards that meeting. So you'll be able to enjoy the run-up to the holidays without having to read a 500-page staff report like you had for tonight. So with that, I'll conclude my comments.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have items they'd like to?
Can I ask a quick question? I was wondering at the city council meeting, because I wasn't able to catch that one, was the discussion about the development project off of 680 as robust as it was the night here? Because we had a really robust community discussion.
Yeah, I would say there were somewhere close to 30 speakers, a very similar set of comments that were heard here at the Planning Commission. So yes, very extensive comment to the council. I don't want to speak directly for the council, but I think the opinion that several of the city council members expressed was the action that they took to initiate this does not take any formal action to approve the project. It simply authorizes the study, and city council decided that they wanted to see that information presented to them. So,
yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. A couple of questions, please. One, you mentioned a training potentially in the spring. Curious if you have more information about that. And then secondly, I'd like to see a balance with the public speaking between in-person and also Zoom. I just recall the last meeting when we had several people on Zoom and several people here, and the Zoom folks had to wait until the very end. And so I'm just wanting to be equitable if you can balance that out between the comments. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll address your first item about some training for the Planning Commission. When Commissioner Wood stepped down, we weren't quite sure how that was going to get filled. We now have that position filled, but because we lost a lot of staff, it's caused a lot of backlog on our side. But somewhere in the winter or early spring, we will come back to you with some training on a collection of issues. The other item in March will be the annual Planning Commissioners Conference. I know some of you have attended, some of you have not. This year it's down in San Ramon, so that'll be another opportunity for some good training for those of you who wish to attend. So.
And then with respect to Zoom versus.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll have a discussion with our folks who run the Zoom. I don't think there's any law or regulation that says the Zoom folks have to be last. If the commission would like to hear the Zoom folks first, or intersperse them, one after the other, I think we can do that.
Yeah, and I'm open to hearing what the other commissioners have to say as well. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, do you have a comment on this item, or?
I was just gonna say that's a really great idea to not make, because it almost feels like a punishment if you didn't show up to the meeting that you have to wait last to go on Zoom. So I personally would like to see them interspersed, especially if there's, over 5 people waiting on Zoom, just kind of splice them in between the people that are here. If that's technically possible, I'm not sure if that'll be too much on our tech folks.
And it might also be helpful if we know how many people are on Zoom.
Right, yeah, that's great.
So that, we can gauge some kind of sense.
Yeah, and I can include in the script that you use for the meeting a request just to find out how many people are waiting as we open the public hearing. As I think we've seen, sometimes we know, how many people are ready, and sometimes we get cards at the last minute. So there could be a few more that come along the way.
And also, this is a good opportunity to thank our technical support. I think they've been doing a great job with the Zoom.
Yeah, the other thing that they've just started, they're now running our clock for the speakers. It used to be the commissioners had to run it. It's very helpful that that's being handled by the technical staff. Yeah.
I had an unrelated question. Do we have any, or do you expect that we'll have any update on the general plan and their kind of the training workshops that the city council is looking to have? I haven't heard anything about that since the last meeting.
Yeah, so there at the moment, it looks like, let me take a look here. So what's going to happen is there are going to be a series of follow-up workshops with the city council, one in January, one in February, and one in March, to take a deeper dive into the collection of alternatives and options available to them, with some follow-up discussion on Sassoon Valley matters. So we had expected to handle that in one meeting. The council said, no, we want to stretch this out, give greater opportunity for public input, and take a deeper dive into that. So three follow-up meetings are going to happen with city council.
Will those be standalone, or they're going to be part of a regular city council meeting?
Those would be standalone meetings.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Special meetings. So we've got our city council meeting typically occur on the first and third Tuesdays of the month. I don't have the dates in front of me, but I'll bring them back to you. So there will be, I think it's the second Tuesday of each month will be, but I want to confirm that.
Thank you.
With no other issues, we are adjourned to our meeting of December 22nd, 2021.